Hello, hello, hello. I'm so excited. We have the most amazing guest today here on Still Human, Elaine Williams with Kathy Keegan. We started this podcast for people. If you've ever felt frustrated about personal development, or we wanted to back about coaching and use comedy to make fun of ourselves and life and more lightness and kindness to the world. So, and I'm so excited because we have the most amazing guest today, Vasallo, who I know from the Lisa Sasevich world. Tania, you do branding, you do so many cool things. So I'm just gonna let you introduce yourself because I probably can't keep up with you. So welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Elaine. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited just to see what happens in your world. I come from the branding background, like you mentioned, Elaine. You know, I worked for many years in New York City as an art director in advertising, you know, in those huge corporations doing multi-million-dollar accounts, you know, like Starbucks and Samsung and AT&T Wireless and Nabisco and all the shebang. And from the outside in, it looked very glamorous, you know, kind of like Mad Men, if you've ever watched that show. But inside my soul was dying. I did not feel the same way. You know, I felt like I was meant for more. So my career has evolved from the big corporate world, and now I work with women entrepreneurs and helping them, mostly with women that have been told that they couldn't, that they weren't good enough. Help them own their values so that they can charge what they're worth and they can create a lifestyle of freedom, you know, have a better relationship with money, and bring that freedom into their life. Because the more money we make, the bigger the impact we can have in the world.
I love
that's a little bit of where I'm at right now.
I love it. And I feel like that's a little bit of Kathy's story too, because Kathy, you were in the corporate wealth management, dun, dun, dun. And you were in charge of all kinds of things, right?
Yeah. And yeah, she said, using the most childish voice available to her.
That's okay. Yes. You're allowed.
It's interesting because I remember years ago when I had when I was diagnosed with cancer, and the way people in the company rallied around me, I saw everybody as humans, even the people who I did for, they really rallied, and I realized that really good basic human beings are in the workplace. Why aren't we showing our best selves? Why aren't we given that opportunity to really be in and show up as our best selves? And there's a lot of drama that gets created there that's really unnecessary. It's sort of self-inflicted suffering in some ways. And I don't mean that people do it to themselves, but yeah, it made it really, really hard because the outpouring of love and support that I got when I was ill was remarkable. And I'm like, oh my God, these people are awesome. And I thought they were fairly awesome, but then I thought they were awesomer. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that's the case today too. Who are we when we walk in the door of the brick and mortar building? Who are we now as we sit at home in our home offices? Who are we bringing? And how can we bring that to light? How can we find that sparkle inside us?
I love that. Because, I think corporations are made up of people. But I think sometimes I know the environment can just be so, and my 15 years at the steakhouse, like it was so toxic, so patriarchy, so, and I understand when you're doing crazy amounts of volume and you're growing so much and you have people who've never really been trained to be managers. They knew how to count the money and do the books, but they didn't know how to manage people. When you have that's like a recipe for dun, 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 and I think that happens in corporate America every day. But I know all three of us learned so much from it. I would always tell, I was like the life coach, of course, at this place. And I would be like, you know what? This is great lessons for when you're in the Broadway show and you don't feel like it and bringing your A game no matter what. This is great lessons for whatever you do. I would always try to reframe, which we talked about a lot. So Tania, I'm so happy that you're here. And I know that you have been, pivot. And I think you have something coming up. Tell us what you're up to. What are you excited about? What's going on?
So, yeah, I just want to point out, too, of like what both of you are saying. I do think that corporate has amazing people. It's just like you're saying, how can we manage them? And maybe that's not where our purpose is meant to be. Like, we needed it to be part of our history and for our growth, like you're saying, and those learning lessons. But we want to tap into, who am I as a person? Why am I here on this planet? What's the bigger reason that I'm here for? And maybe I had to go through corporate, and maybe I had to go through illness and have corporate people support me, or maybe I had to go through the steakhouse, and just go through just the chaos of what's going on there to take you to this point. I always refer back to, it's like that commencement speech from Steve Jobs with connecting the dots. You can't connect them moving forward. You can only connect them looking back.
Right.
So I don't regret, I'm very thankful, even though it they don't align with me, corporate world. I'm thankful that it gave me the career that it gave me, the opportunities that it gave me, because if not, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so it brings me back to what you're saying, Elaine, of what gets me excited and where am I at? If you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be teaching about business strategy and money and our relationship to money to women, I would have laughed at you. I would have been like, I'm a creative. I'm an art director. I don't do sales. I don't do strategy and business and money. I come from a patriarchal country. I was born and raised in Spain at the end of a dictatorship in a very patriarchal family. We don't talk money. That's a taboo subject. That's a men's thing. So it's funny that you asked, because, and I was talking about this with Kathy when we talked a couple of weeks ago, of you have your own plans and then there's divine plans, So here I am going down the creative and the art director career, and now I've been put in this place of, yes, I was born in Spain and raised there to a Spanish father, an American mother, very patriarchal country and family, but with the opportunity to come and live in the States and the country of freedom where we can connect with more women and bring this out, what I've realized in these last couple of years is just, I'm a freedom seeker, I just don't like any type of oppression of anyone telling me what to do, how to do it, when to do it. I just don't like that. And like many of us, I don't think anyone really likes that. But here's the thing. I don't like going around either as a victim. Like, oh, I'm a woman. We have it so hard and we're the minority and da-da-da. I don't want to ride on that story either. Like, yes, it is what it is. And I don't want to take away, I make it less than what it is. But it's also a huge opportunity for women in our time in history to rise up, to step into our purpose, to do these things that, like I'm saying, yes, look at your finances. It's not a men's game. Just because you were told that you're not good at math, I sucked at math. I had a tutor at school. That's why it makes me laugh that now I'm talking about money. Yet on the other hand, when I was in systems and the strategies, thanks to my husband, who's super supportive, and we have amazing men in this world, that do these kind of things, that want to support and build us up. He's like, oh, connect with my financial advisor. Once I invested all my money from my 401k and then I put it into an IRA because that's what you're supposed to do after corporate. And I did that with a Citibank guy. I didn't ask the right questions because I didn't know what the questions were. I didn't even know what a dividend was back then. I'm not a financial advisor, but I did take that money and started learning, and I started learning the systems for business. I started learning the systems for money. How can you make money grow for you instead of us working so hard at it? And I'm proud to say that in 10 years, I've 4x my money, that I took from that account because I followed steps versus just abdicating my power to someone else.
I love that, Tania.
So what am I up to right now? Is that it's helping women. We need to all empower each other. And where there's those fears and those questions like, what do I do with the business? Or I don't know how to do this. Or it's okay. None of us knew how to do it. None of us are born with this stuff. And start talking, having more conversations about money, about business.
I love
off this whole lid on the.
I love.
So that's what I'm up to.
Oh my God! Thank you. I know. I'm like, Kathy, you go, and then I'll go.
Oh my God! No, you know what? We need this huge standing ovation soundtrack here because Tania, what you said, it's so inspiring. And what you're talking about is learning how to ask for help. That there's nothing wrong with asking for help. She's got applause playing.
I was like, is it a hair dryer?
It's an applause.
I like it.
And I've got crickets, and I've got a rim shot, and I've got booze, but we don't need booze because,
No.
Anyway.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Tania, it's so inspiring. And it's being able to ask each other for help and being able to say, I don't know, because you know what? We can't know it all. There's so much out there. And it's so great because we can learn. We can learn. And if it ends up being the wrong path, then you take another path. And the thing that you were saying about everything connecting back in time, I can tell you today that I wouldn't change a thing in my past because it's all what led to here. Mm-hmm. And it all makes sense. So even selling bratwurst sandwiches at a racetrack when I was in college,
I didn't know that.
It's still related to being a Woolworth's countertop, waitress at the Harvest House Cafe, is related to being a laborer driving around in a truck after the storm of 1978 to living in Spain. And Tania and I have stuff in common from Spain. Now,
I bet.
Tania and I, we met, 2 weeks ago for the first time?
Yeah.
And you've already been to Spain and back? Is that what you're telling me?
We've already been to Spain. I was in Spain just post Franco, and I said, oh, yeah, I went to this university, St. Louis. She said, SLU? You went to SLU? And it was like, oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
We went to the same school.
In Spain.
In Madrid.
Oh, my God. That's crazy, because I'm sure there's a ton.
Of connecting the dots.
Wow.
How cool is that? Because Elaine and I just did a connection call about a month ago. We have not seen or talked to each other in 4 or 5 years, Elaine?
Yeah.
And she's like, you have to meet Kathy. Kathy lived in Spain. She's going to love to tell you her stories, and you can connect with her with this and that. And what a cool full circle and talking about divine plans. Like, I feel like this is just the beginning. We have no idea where all of this is going.
Oh, my God. It's so exciting. Well, thank you. And, and Tania, everything that you said was kind of why Kathy and I started this podcast, because, you and I was in this, I call it my $1 million mastermind. It was an awesome container. I needed something really big and robust to finally allow me to let go of this restaurant that I had been the top trainer, and I helped grow it, but my identity was wrapped in it, and there was a lot of dysfunction. So I needed a really big container, and it was not really the best thing for me because I wasn't a beginner, but I wasn't an advanced, and there were so many things I wish they had told me. Like I remember, saying, okay, I'm going to do a webinar that teaches how to do a webinar, and getting so excited and doing all this stuff for it, and then nobody showed up. And so then I'm sobbing, I'm full of shame and rejection, I'm going to fail for 2 days. And then somebody goes, oh, they never make when you're first starting out. But there were so many things that I wasn't told. I didn't know that I didn't know. I didn't know to ask, that in hindsight, I wish somebody had been, for the amount of money and energy and stuff, I wish someone had been guiding me more closely. So anyway, I get it's all part of my journey, but that's one reason we wanted to start this podcast, especially if you're new in business or a new coach or something, because I know my experience, women, we shame ourselves. I guess I should just speak for myself, but my experience, I've been a coach now for 20 years, and I love serving women and a few smart men, but I know, in my experience, we internalize things and we feel shame, partly because we're socialized. Oh, you're not good at math, or, men or whatever, the patriarchy. And so, I'm all about can we laugh instead of shame ourselves, right? Because, a lot of us were grown up being shamed because that was sort of the parental thing or whatever. But now as an adult, I am so good at shaming myself, and working with Kathy, I'll be like, you helped me get out of my shame spiral. I had one foot in the toilet, but I pulled it back out. But anyway, so that's one reason we wanted to talk about all the things that people don't talk about that we wish they would talk about, like numbers, oh, I made a mistake, so.
And the other aspect of that is being an expert, having developed in a career, being at the top of your game, as you said. That's what you were just talking about. Same with me when I left the corporate space, and then becoming a beginner again. And the difference between sort of, the sort of the humility of being a beginner, but also it took me a while, the constructs that you have. And again, I don't want to put down corporate at all. I felt I got so much out of it. It isn't all bad by a long shot.
Absolutely.
It just could be so much better.
Yeah,
and I think that I think what it takes to make it better isn't as much as people believe, because I think if you focus on the people, that's where the change really starts to happen. But
Yes.
Oh, I just lost my train of thought. So next.
No, that's okay. That's and Kathy, if you're new to the podcast, Kathy Keegan's mission is to end needless workplace suffering. And I just love that because it's just so concrete. And that can mean if you're in corporate, how to re-empower yourself, or it can mean if you're your own boss and you can be a bitchy boss. Hello, but I just love, Kathy, that you've had all this experience with HR and all your stuff with corporate, and then you apply this to working with your clients so that people don't have to suffer, And and Tanya, can you talk to us a little bit about branding? Because I feel like that gets bandied around, and and sometimes brand new people oh, I'm gonna get branded, and I'm like, you're just starting out. Shouldn't you start doing what you're doing first? And then, so can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's an interesting subject. Yeah, thank you, Elaine, for bringing that up. I feel what I found, you were talking about the $1 Million Mastermind, to me that opened up when I entered that world 5 years, almost 6 years ago in October. I felt like a veil was pulled open. I did not know that entrepreneurs existed. I always considered myself a freelancer, because prior to that, I'd been running a studio with my husband for about 6-7 years, where we offered all kinds of branding, creative services, graphic design, photography. But like you were saying, it was kind of like the feast and famine. Here you have two creatives. He's an art director too. And it happens to all of it. For anyone that's listening, you don't have to be a creative. You could be working in the healing world, or you could be a masseuse, or you could be a copywriter, you could be whatever it is. But neither one of us had gone to school to learn and get trained in sales or in business. We did not have an MBA. You have two creatives trying to run a business. And that's not going to work. It's just a recipe for disaster. Yet, like you're saying, Elaine, there's all this shame. It was really a feast and famine. Some months we'd make it and get a client, and we're like, yeah, this is awesome. We're making it. We're shining. This is awesome. And then the next month it's like, oh my God, I think we're going to need to go get a job. There's no money coming in. We're dipping into savings again. And it was like that for 7 years. It's not because of shame, I'm not good enough, but again, that's what you're carrying from your past or your culture or your family or previous spouses or whatever your story is. And you're making it about yourself, like you did with the webinar, instead of looking at the bigger picture and saying, well, this was an experiment. What did I do right and what did I do wrong? And when I entered that $1 million mastermind, I realized all the things that I was doing wrong because I had no previous training. I did not ask for help because I can figure this out on my own. And as women, we tend to be that way. I'll figure it out on my own. I'm super independent. I'm resourceful.
I'm good. Yep.
I can do it.
I got it. I'll figure it out.
I'll look up YouTube videos. I'll hang out on the free webinars or podcasts, and I will piece it all together instead of reinventing the wheel. It's so much easier to just follow someone that already has those systems and to look at the numbers and see what it really means. Like maybe when you did your webinar, Elaine, you're like, oh, how many people did I have on my list? Only 100 people. Well, what are the numbers? Only 5% shows up and registers. And out of the 5%, only, whatever the number is, 3% show up to the actual webinar. And here you are, that if you do the actual statistics, maybe that would have meant that only one person would have shown up to the webinar once you looked at it, and it has nothing to do with you. And I share all of this because branding is a little bit the same way. I feel like we're in an era right now, it has its advantages. We can all start businesses so easily. We can just go out there, print out some cards, open up a template website, on Wix or Square or whatever your website platform is, pay a couple $100, thousands if anything, and you are in business. You can start collecting money. This is not like 30 years ago that was a brick and mortar and you had to go ask for a loan.
Right.
You had to believe in yourself. You had to, to get it going. So there's a different mentality nowadays where, because branding involves, it's your image. It's what's the image that you're putting out there.
Right.
And you remember you. I have a formula that I teach my clients and in my events that's called the SET formula. And what it stands for is your skills plus your experience plus your talents is what makes you authentic and valuable. So once you can become aligned with this, with your skills, your experience, and your talents, it's almost like competition melts away. Because even though Kathy and I went to the same university, and even if we studied the exact same career and we had the exact same skills, which I usually compare this with my husband because he's also an art director, his experiences in life are different than mine, and his talents, what comes easy to him, because there's a difference between skills and talents. Skills are things that you've learned, that you've sat down. Talents come more innate. You might just be a good organizer, or you might be a good people person,
right,
or you're just, there's just certain things that come naturally to you. So there's never going to be anyone exactly like you and as unique as you. So when you're putting your brand together, you want to bring these things out, like what makes me different as a copywriter or as a coach. There's so many coaches out there, and then we all get worried about like, oh my God, she's going to steal you're at a networking group or networking event, and there's 3 other coaches there. They're going to steal all my clients that I could have in this networking group. Like there's that fear. And it's like, no, if you can connect to this SET formula that I talk about, and if you can create your image and your brand, because going back to what I was saying, it's so easy to set up a business nowadays. So it's like, oh, I'll just get some photos done that my cousin will do for me because he just bought a brand new camera, or with my iPhone, iPhones are so advanced, I'll just do some nice selfies, and that'll be my main photos, my professional photos. And for my brand, my graphic design, my logo, that's easy. I'll just go down to Kinko's, look at some of the templates, or go on to 99 Designs, which tend to be a lot of similar templates too. And here you have the exact same cookie cutter logo that 100 other people have, and the photo that's not professional because you took, but you feel like, oh, let me express myself, through my photography and graphic design, even though I don't have to hire anyone else. because we don't keep that in mind. Again, as women, we tend to like, I'll figure it out on my own. I'll go on the cheaper side instead of figuring out, okay, I need to hire a graphic designer or an art director. I need to hire a copywriter or copy content for my web. I need to hire a photographer. And maybe at the beginning you don't have the funds for that. And
Right.
I get that. That's totally fine. But study, educate yourself about branding, because it's not something that you just throw out there. It's going to hurt your image and your reputation. You're not going to become memorable. I used to teach a class called A Brand New You. I haven't taught it in years. I have it as a home study now because I'm more focused on setting up the systems for our business and, in our relationship with money. But just if you can't afford hiring those people at this point in your business, at least educate yourself of like, what does branding entail? Like, I cringe when I go onto websites and people have like 50 different fonts on them.
Oh my
Like,
God.
oh, a headline in one color, and it's Times Roman, and then the next one, like there's no thought to the fonts behind it. Again, I've studied this. I've gotten an education in art directions. That was my master's. I studied communications. I understand that I've had an education that a lot of people haven't had, but there's something to honor in that too, because you've had that training and hiring the experts that have had those trainings, whether it's a photographer, a copy content copywriter, an art graphic designer. You want to do your research with that, or at least educate yourself if you can't hire them at this point, and have it in mind, like, okay, a year down the line, I will hire the photographer,
Right?
Or I'll hire the branding expert or the graphic designer, if that makes sense. That was a
I
long
love that.
answer for everything that you were
You
asking.
know what? And I feel like that's a lot of nuances, and since I teach communication, right? So like, even though we're talking, I'm speaking words, but there's tone, there's delivery, there's my energy, right? I could be like, I'm so excited to see you guys today. And that's not congruent, right? But I feel like branding is one of those things that is important, and it's easy to be like, oh, whatever. But yeah, like I had hired I allowed this person to talk me into a new website when I was perfectly happy with my old website. Big regret, but whatever. But one of the things I remember thinking, I don't think she knows anything about design, because the font was like crack. It was like, and I don't know much about branding, but I just knew like, this is giving me a headache. And so I love it. That's such a great thing.
I think too that what I'm hearing too is that branding is my foundation. It's who I am what I bring, right? And so when you look at, there was a building when we lived in New York City, right across the river from us, they were building a building and from scratch. And they took so long on that foundation. I was like, are they still doing that? Well, guess what? Our whole lives, we're still doing that, right? So a lot of it is about branding is getting to know yourself and to know yourself really well and being able to answer some pretty hard questions, but you have the answers within you. Yes. And it's worth it to do the hard work. And so often we think that because there's a template out there or there are 3 bullet points on how to be the best coach ever, that we can just put it all together. And again, it's that ability to say, help, and it's okay. I need help, and it's okay. We're here to support each other. And the other aspect of the competition I think is so important too, is that there really is this feeling sometimes that there's not enough, and we have circumstances in our world where it looks like there isn't and there isn't. But in terms of what we do, there is nobody like you doing what you do. Mm-hmm. And Tania, you're right. If we're in the same room and we're doing the same thing and someone gravitates to you, what I understand is they relate to you more. They're going to be more successful with you. And I don't take it personally anymore. That's the beauty of coaching. Coaching kind of is one of those things that sort of self-selects. It's a connection or it's not a connection, and it's okay. No harm, no foul. There are plenty of us out there. And I think that's why there are so many of us out there, because we really can make a difference. It also has to be a good connection.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. And I feel like that's what,
Thank you for bringing.
yeah, go ahead, Tanya. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Well, I was just saying how,
No, I was just saying that I'm glad that you reiterated the foundation, because I usually have a diagram with that of like what our business looks like, and it's a house. It's actually a house. It's so funny that you said that, Kathy. And it's branding is at the bottom of it. It's the foundation of the house, and then it's divided into 3 rooms. Like one is for, sales and marketing, the other one's operations and, management, and the other one is delivery. And so you have to know what percentage you have to devote at your stage of your business. But the branding is the foundation there, and you really have to ask yourself those questions, whether you hire someone else or you're doing it yourself. What is like you just made a comment on my logo.
It's
right before
beautiful.
we got on the call. And it's a little illustration. It's a hand-drawn stick figure, because as an art director, believe it or not, I was never a great drawer. There were other art directors that could draw 10 times better, and this was before we presented stuff on the computer comps. At our school, art training, Miami Ad School, they had us do everything by hand. So I would just do stick figure drawings and then write a little descriptor underneath. This is a woman doing this and that, because my drawings were not as good as other art directors. But going back to that logo, it's what do you call it? It's a stick figure drawing that represents your inner child, and it represents my energy. Like when I wanted to put an image out there, I wanted it to be somewhat sophisticated, but also playful, so other women can relate to it. So you want to think, this is just a tip for anyone that's putting branding together, whether you're rebranding or starting a business. Think about 3 adjectives that represent your business. Like, are you playful and sophisticated, or are you elegant, or do you speak with curse words? Like what Elaine was saying, your tone of voice. Like, how do you express yourself, and how do you bring that to your image? How do you want people to remember you? And by doing that, then you can translate that to your images, to your copy, to your video, to your speaking and your presentations. Are you more shy? And when you gravitate to those templates and those business cards or those logos or those websites, what are you liking about it? Why do you like it? And when you have that understanding about yourself, it'll be much easier to work with the website designer, with the graphic designer, because we tend to think that they're going to read our mind, and they can't read our mind. You have to be able to verbalize to them, like, the whole look is in blue and the hues of blues, or, we want to work with illustrations that are black and white. Like, you want to be able to express that to them because you've already done that work. Again, Elaine, go for it. I get too excited about all these things and helping people with their business, whether it's with branding.
I love it. And I think, this is the one thing I've talked a lot about this with Kathy, of the fine line of, being willing to be a beginner, but at the end of the day, it's still your business. So like being able to ask for help without abdicating. And I don't know, like,
yes.
And for so long, I would be like, I'm fine. I'll do it. And then I would find somebody and I go, oh, good, here. And they'd be like completely overwhelmed because I wasn't articulating, or I would just completely abdicate. And I felt shame about that. And then I realized, Elaine, your background is in the arts, restaurants, comedy clubs, real estate. You've never been trained. You didn't get an MBA. You didn't know how to manage people. I mean, I can kind of manage my handyman and stuff, but and I had a lot of shame about that. But I think for me, that's been a long process of like, there is a messy middle, right? Of like, okay, I need to learn about branding. I want to think about this more, and I really don't have a clue. So, but I could do some of my own homework, so like bringing something to the conversation before you just go, whatever, help me, fix me, which is how I used to approach a lot of things because I'm 15 emotionally, but no, on a good day, I'm 18 now. But Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Kathy's like, thank God, Jesus.
My inner toddler would like to express something, and her expression is myself. And that's who's usually trying to run my show, is that, I don't need your help. I'll do it myself. I'm a smart girl. You should know this by now, Kathleen.
Right. So funny, all the different ways we speak to ourselves. And okay, well, Tania, we like to ask our guests, is there a funny story or an embarrassing thing that has happened to you in business that you would be willing to share with us? Because you're obviously very successful.
Oh, I have. No, we all have these. And I think that's a great question to ask, because it takes away this whole
mystique,
idea
right,
that we think everyone's so perfect and they started up here. Let me think about this. See what comes to me right now with business.
And while she's thinking,
I have a great one. Yes,
go.
I have a great one. So my business model is based on live events. Before COVID, I was doing all these live events, a couple times a year. And I think it was because I didn't do any last year. Maybe it was the year before, 2019, August. Super hot. So it's a 3-day event, and I'm talking to the hotel manager, and they're telling me a week before, look, the room that you want to do the event at, the AC is kind of iffy. And here we are in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where it can reach 90, 100 degrees, summertime in August. She's like, maybe we should move you to a different room for the event. And I'm very particular, and I was like, no, I don't like the other room. The ceilings are too low, but here's what we can do. So we came to an agreement where we would start in the room where the AC was a little bit off and that it could die at any moment. But they were going to have the other room set up in case we needed to move the people into the other room. And I'm in the middle of doing an offer at my event. Saturday afternoon, the AC goes down, and I'm talking to everyone, and I'm inviting them to join me to my year-long program, and I'm on stage in front of 30 women, and literally, I kid you not, some people falling asleep in front of my face, like dozing off because it is so
hot,
freaking hot in that room. Well, I'm not going to move them now in the middle of this because there's a sequence with everything. I definitely learned my lesson with that one. It was just listen to the hotel manager, listen to the assistants. And yeah, it was a disaster. It was a disaster of an offer, being on stage. And here you are preparing all this time. And no, it did not work out good. I had at least 2 people falling asleep and a couple others leaving early because it was just too hot for them. So I had no attention from anyone in that room, basically.
Oh, God.
It's just like attention went.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yes,
that's funny now.
If I can share.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny now, but it wasn't then.
Another one that just happened recently was on Clubhouse. I don't know if you ladies are on Clubhouse, and, we're trying to figure out the rooms, and I was with another colleague. We were co-hosting, and I don't know if because we're not hosting it under the right club, because when we've done it under the right clubs, we've had a lot of women come in. But this particular one, it was one woman, and I started doing the teachings, and she left, because you can go in and out of the rooms. So it just left me and the other teacher, my co-host, and talk about shame. At least I started laughing, Elaine, like you were saying. I was like, okay, she just left in the middle of my teaching, and there was only one person. I either cry or I can laugh about this. And we just giggled and laughed about it. I was like, well, what, again, we went into the learnings. What did we learn about this? Was it because we weren't hosting with the right club?
Right.
Was it the time of the day? I've learned to not, even though it stung a little bit, I was not making it about myself. I'm like, there's something that we're missing in the metrics.
Yeah.
And we need to correct it and do it again. So, yeah, that was another one. If you can laugh at these things and at least learn from them.
I love it.
That's the key. So it's a great question.
Love it, Tania. Thank you. It makes me think of I was doing Barefoot in the Park, the Neil Simon comedy, and it was my biggest role, in a long time. And we were at this beautiful opera house in Texas, and I am the star. I am the Jane Fonda role. And it was just, and I remember it was after we did a matinee, and all of these old people were on their meds, and there was the whole front row was asleep. And I just remember thinking, I have done all this training. I am a trained actress, and they are asleep on the front row. But it's definitely humbling, and yeah, you know what? It probably had nothing to do with me, because I had a great, it was cast well. It's Neil Simon. It was a great production, but they were just old. It was after lunchtime, and they were on their meds. But yeah, it was. Thank God we can laugh, right? Thank God.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, I know you have something coming up, Tania. We would love for you to share about it.
And now this drops a little bit later. It drops in May.
Oh,
so
okay.
I just want to make sure that I don't want it to have already happened, because I want to make sure that people are able to connect with you, Tania, in any instance, whether it's the upcoming event
or something
anything
else.
thereafter.
Okay, good.
Because you're an inspiration.
Thank you, Kathy. So you're so good with details.
Thank you. Yes, I will have, what's coming up is at the end of the month, and it's not in May. They could still go to it. What I have going on is, it's called Increase Your Income and Impact. It's an event. We're moving it online now instead of doing it live. And the next one won't happen until either end of the summer or fall. So we will see, but you can get on the waiting list. You can go to increaseyourincomeandimpact.com if it's already happened, because we're doing the spring one right now. And there's a couple other things that haven't been put back up, which is Designing My Life Workbook. It's a free workbook of how to design your life, because looking into all the different areas of your life, since most of us plan more our trips and our weddings than we plan our life. It's a great little workbook to do. I do it a couple times a year. I go through it because I can rate myself differently in different areas of my life. Like maybe I'm very focused on business or career, but I'm neglecting the fun and play aspect of my life, or a relationship, or the romantic side. So it's always good to do it. Again, that's designingmylifeworkbook.com. And I have something else coming up. It's the top mistakes women make with money, but I'm not even sure what the URL is with that, because the VA is trying to set it up for me. So I wish I could share that with you guys.
Well, how do they
go to increaseyourincomeandimpact.com?
Tania, say that again. How do they find you?
Right now it's increaseyourincomeandimpact.com.
Okay.
And then they can get on the newsletter with Designing My Life Workbook at this point. We can
That's
update
wonderful.
as we're going.
We'll also get a bio and a write-up too, so that we can send that around so that people will have access.
Oh, I'm so glad you're good at details, Kathy. Oh my God.
It is.
Thank you.
It is such an honor to have you here, Tania. I am just so thrilled. This has just been the most, just such an uplifting conversation. It's so uplifting. I'm sweating, and
I'm schwitzing.
and hopefully it's. I just want to let people know who are listening, right? Because you don't get the glow if you're not. If you're if you're watching, you get to see me all shiny. Anyway, but Elaine, I think that people need to get in touch with you.
Oh, thank you. Before we wrap up, yes. So I'm doing, I do a free training on the third Wednesday of every month, and you can find out more on captivatethecrowd.com. I have a confidence on camera checklist, because we all need to be making videos, because it's hot, it's where it's at, and there's a million things you can do with them. And I'm on a mission to help heal the world with love and laughter and kindness, and I cannot do it alone. So I need a whole movement of people to come join me. And I'm also going to be doing a cool challenge. But anyway, but Kathy, how do we find you if people are suffering in their workplace, or they have horrible bosses if they're self-employed?
Oh my goodness, Elaine, I'm flattered you asked. Thank you. So I'm at kathykeegan.com. That's my website. And if you want to email me, it's kathy@kathykeegan.com. How do you like
And
that?
that's
We
with
tried to keep it
Ks.
fairly simple.
Kathy
Lots
with
of them.
Ks. Kathy Keegan.
Yes.
All
Exactly.
Ks.
And and one of the things that I can really help you with, especially if you're about to make a really big decision, I can help you eliminate coulda, woulda, shoulda. How'd you like to leave that in the past?
I would love to.
So reach out to me, because I'm telling you, I developed this tool for myself when I've made huge decisions, and I can go back and read what I wrote at the time and realize, oh yeah, I made a good decision with all the info I had at the time. And so those moments when you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't have, it's like, read your letter.
Awesome. Great
Makes
tool.
a
Well,
difference.
Tania, thanks again so much. We just loved having you, and I'm so happy that we reconnected. And I feel like we're going to do some more cool stuff. I think I have this feeling.
Yes.
So,
And you know what I
And
want to
thank you
offer
all.
you, ladies,
Yeah.
for anyone that's listening with the podcast, even if the event has passed once this drops, connect with Kathy, Elaine, or myself, and I will give you a coupon code so that you don't have to pay $197 to join the event. You will be able to come on a scholarship and come for free, since you are carving out the time and you've listened all the way to the end of this. So just connect with us that you're interested. Just email them or email me with the title, event, scholarship or guest, and see, and we can pass that information on to you as a gift for your time and being here and listening. Thank you.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Tania.
Thanks, ladies. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. We'll see you
everybody.
next time.
Bye.